Imagine a world where the front line just doesn't exist anymore. We've always thought of war as this massive clash of heavy tanks, infantry, and clearly defined borders, right? But while the world has been busy looking for the next big conflict on a physical map, a silent, totally new paradigm shift driven by AI, code, and autonomous swarms has already started. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're pulling back the curtain on an invisible conflict that is literally reshaping human history. The AI war has already begun, and honestly, most people just haven't noticed yet.
Okay, let's map out exactly how this is happening. We're going to take a quick global tour today to prove this invisible war is already raging. We'll start with the Silent War's beginnings, check out the ghosts of the Pacific, pivot to a silicon chokehold, see what happens when swarms take on a network, and finally, look at how silicon is officially replacing steel.
So there is this incredibly stark juxtaposition defining modern supremacy right now. It's no longer about who has the most tanks or the largest landmass or even the most troops. It is entirely about who has the most stable supply of microchips and the most advanced algorithms. Think about it. In the 20th century, you won by having an impenetrable front line. Today, the side with the better code can completely bypass billions of dollars in traditional defenses to strike targets thousands of miles away, all before a single conventional shot is ever fired.
Which brings us to our first theater of this new conflict, the Ghosts of the Pacific, where it's all about sensor fusion and invisible snipers.
To really grasp where this is heading, we have to look at a massive chess move the US just made. They recently deployed a fleet of F-22 Raptors to Kadena Air Base over in Okinawa, Japan. Now that base is only 650 kilometers from the Taiwan Strait. In aerospace terms, that is basically right next door. Because these jets can hit speeds up to Mach 2.25, that proximity gives them a fatal 30 to 45-minute reaction time. An F-22 taking off from Kadena can literally penetrate Taiwanese airspace and start patrolling before Chinese radars even realize they need to wake up.
But what makes the Raptor so terrifying in this digital age isn't just that it's fast or stealthy. It's this concept called sensor fusion. This is pure algorithmic superiority. It allows the jet to take in billions of data points from radars, satellites, you name it, and it essentially imprints the entire map of the battlefield right into the pilot's mind in a matter of seconds. It lets these planes detect, track, and eliminate enemies from vast distances way before the other side even realizes they're in a fight.
And that brilliant engineering creates this wild asymmetry in the Pacific skies. You know, China's Air Force actually boasts a numerically superior fleet of J-20 stealth fighters. But here's the catch. The J-20 really only offers true invisibility from the front. Its radar signature is actually quite prominent if you're looking from the sides or the rear. The US F-22 Raptor, on the other hand, is a true ghost. Its radar cross-section from all directions is roughly the size of a marble. On an enemy screen, it just looks like a small flock of birds. At the end of the day, the side with the better algorithm and superior stealth is going to win.
And we can't just talk about the US here. We have to look at Japan's historic awakening. They are deeply integrating with the US Aegis naval network to build what is essentially an insurmountable high-tech wall against both Beijing and Moscow. I mean, they transformed their Izumo and Kaga helicopter destroyers into light aircraft carriers for F-35s. They've bumped their defense budget to a record $56 billion. They're pouring money into autonomous drone swarms to protect their southern islands, and they're deploying Type 25 hypersonic anti-ship missiles. They are matching massive steel with cutting-edge silicon. Now, what's really interesting is what happens when the chips actually run out. Let's pivot over to the silicon chokehold and asymmetric autonomous reach. Let's look at a very specific day, April 25, 2026. Fearing Ukrainian strikes, Russia tried to evacuate its most precious fighter jets, like the Su-57 Felon, deep behind the Ural Mountains. But here's the thing about the transparent digital battlefield we live in today. Moving massive fleets in secret? It's basically impossible. Ukraine used real-time satellite telemetry, merged it with encrypted field data and rail network tracking, and literally pinpointed the exact tail numbers and landing coordinates of those jets weeks in advance. Then, they sent in the autonomous drones.
And to put this into perspective, those drones traveled a staggering 1,700 kilometers deep into the supposedly impenetrable Russian heartland. They struck the Shogol base in Chelyabinsk. These Ukrainian Lyuty and Bobur autonomous drones flew for over 10 hours, just skimming the treetops. They completely bypassed billions of rubles worth of electronic warfare defenses. Why? Because they were using advanced AI-supported optical terrain recognition that didn't even need to rely on GPS to find its target.
When you look at the raw metrics, this reality of semiconducting dependency is just stunning. Take the Su-57. It is a $100 to $120 million asset, but its operational fleet is critically low, sitting at well under 30. And the reason is that production is absolutely crippled by Western microchip embargoes. They literally cannot build the brains for these jets anymore. Then, look at the other side. You have Ukrainian autonomous drones that cost maybe $10,000 each. They are mass-produced and packed with advanced AI. Russia's elite, irreplaceable stealth jets are being wiped out by cheap, AI-driven tech.
Let's see how this dynamic builds in a totally different environment. Our final theater, swarms versus the network, down in the Strait of Hormuz.
On May 7th, Iran attempted a massive asymmetric play. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched these B-swarm tactics directly at 3 U.S. guided missile destroyers, including the USS Truxtun and the USS Mason. Picture this: a wave of small, dangerous speedboats and cheap suicide drones pouring out of the dark to completely overwhelm these billion-dollar warships. It is a terrifying scenario. The goal is to create total chaos by just overwhelming the enemy's advanced radar with sheer, localized numbers.
But here's where we see the sheer scale of the U.S. retaliatory network. The destroyer's Aegis combat systems and standard missiles instantly locked on and just shredded that swarm. MH-60 Seahawks neutralized threats right at the source, and it didn't even stop there. A massive, coordinated aerial operation followed, kept aloft by stratotankers acting as fuel bridges in the sky. F-35s glided over targets like ghosts, and precision-guided JDAMs permanently sealed the entrances of Iran's secret underground missile cities on Qeshm Island. They completely erased the radar networks at Bandar Abbas and Sirak.
And the really crucial takeaway here is why this operation actually happened. Based on the reports, this pinpoint military destruction was actually the enforcement of a one-page memorandum, a ceasefire offer from President Trump that had been secretly delivered via Pakistan. The memo demanded the immediate opening of the Strait of Hormuz and the restraint of proxy groups. So when those U.S. destroyers were fired upon, the resulting surgical strike sent a very clear message: comply with the ceasefire or lose your military infrastructure. It is a vivid, brutal example of how algorithmic and network dominance is now used to literally force diplomatic compliance.
Which brings us to our final takeaway today: the new paradigm of global security. Silicon replaces steel.
There is this incredibly chilling realization that is now haunting traditional military hierarchies all over the world. When you look at those F-22s ghosting the Pacific, the long-range drone strikes deep in the Urals, and the network retaliation in Hormuz, one thing becomes absolutely clear. The era of relying purely on massive landmass, massive steel ships, or large standing armies as an absolute guarantee of security, it's officially over. Inexpensive, mass-produced smart machines are completely rewriting the familiar rules of warfare. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to reflect on. As we watch all of these events unfold, who truly holds the power in the 21st century? Is it the nations with the largest standing armies and the biggest borders, or is it the nations with the most advanced algorithms, the smartest autonomous swarms, and the most stable supply of microchips? This invisible war is defining our future, and it is happening right now. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.